Welcome back to the Multiracial Verse podcast. I am Antonio Fernandez. I really hope you enjoyed part one with Laura Benitez. And now let's get into part two. So you're growing up and your father comes out as gay when you're probably maybe tweens, early teenager.
13.
What was that like? Yeah. How did that affect your family? What was that like dynamically?
Oh man. Yeah. So that was rough because it was yet another thing that made me feel like I didn't belong. Because I never heard of anyone, like I knew a few, I was in theater, so I knew a few people who were gay, but it was very sort of like, and my parents were always like, that there's nothing wrong with that. That's just, that's just how people are. You need to be accepting of everyone. So there was never any like homophobia, which is great, but it's different when it's your dad, because there's implications to his relationship with your mom and with, how it makes you feel a little bit like, what did this family mean to him? Like it was just a little confusing. And my dad being silent generation, like he's not going to talk about any of that stuff. He's like, the best he could do was like, I'm gay. Like that was a big deal. And then that's all he's going to say, and I think he had a lot of internalized shame and all this stuff. So he ended up kind of living far away from us. He would still, be in communication and everything and financially support us, but he wasn't around that much. After that, I'm sure I'm sure there was shame involved. I'm sure there was a lot going on there emotionally for him, but, it was yet another thing that I felt people were going to judge. And so on top of sort of being all the normal stuff of growing up, of being like a tall girl who's brainy, like that's tough. That's tough to begin with. And then you're like this mixed race person who doesn't fit in anywhere. And then all of a sudden you have a gay parent that you don't feel like you can tell people about because they're going to talk shit about your dad. Yeah. Then you're just like, so I ended up just having a really close circle, and it changed the way that I was social, I think, because I wasn't willing to trust people as much. Yeah, that's and that's another a whole other journey and story connected to that. And who or what did your friend group look like? So in high school, my friend group was a group of about 4 white girls who I hung out with, who I'm still friends with for the most part. Just awesome kind of artistic oddballs. We were all musical, and one of them grew up. She's writing books now, and so we were sort of artsy kids. I liked the artsy kids. That's awesome. The creative ones. So that's who I hung out with in high school. Has your relationship with them, if you've stayed in contact with them, and your relationship to your identity, how has that changed? Is there, like if, you have friends growing up and your friends might have, did they only see you as another white girl, or did they recognize, oh, this person is biracial, multiracial, so they weren't saying those or perpetuating stereotypes or other things that happens in friend groups when you're in areas where it's not diverse and people don't understand the difference between, those type of microaggressions and not microaggressions. Yeah. Totally. I mean, they were progressive, woke is not the right word, but, enlightened humans, I think, even in this time period. But I think it's interesting sort of post-racial reckoning, I think, or the racial reckoning around George Floyd, where I personally being like Gen X, like needed to examine some of my own, inherited ideas about, whiteness and racial hierarchy and all that stuff. Like it was a good re-examination for me. I think I just kind of looking and having conversations with them and like thinking about it myself, I think I felt whiter than they saw me as, which sounds about right? I felt pretty white because I feel like kind of culturally white because I was mostly raised by my mom. But I think they saw me as less white than I felt, which it just tells you everything you need to know about sort of like racism. Like that's kind of like how it works.
For sure.
And it's not their fault necessarily, but that
all.
is just how that all kind of works.
Yeah, so, no, that's
so
great.
Interesting.
That's a great explanation of it too. Did your father's family, did you lose all connection to them after your father left, or?
I do. So that family is a bit fractured. They live kind of all over the place. There's some in Texas and some all over the East Coast. So they live a ways away, but we do keep in contact. I have a couple of them that I message and text with and on Facebook and stuff like that. So we definitely, and that was one of those things like, you're saying like I felt whiter than I was seen as, and I always felt like with those relatives that because I was mixed race that they might feel like I didn't belong with them, but that is in no way the case.
Yeah.
And the family does not see that family doesn't see me as separate in any way. Like
that's awesome.
That was all internal. Yeah.
Did your father's coming out affect his relationship with his family?
Somewhat. So luckily his sisters were all very supportive. They were very cute. Like he would be dating some guy and they'd be like, that guy's too young for him. They'd be like, just being like full, like, auntie about it. Like they were very sweet.
Yeah.
But his brother couldn't get there. His brother, would be like, judgmental, and he would like say, oh, you can come but your partner can't come. Like just he drove a wedge, and he was a difficult personality, I think, for other reasons too. So it wasn't just my dad, but unfortunately it did ruin his relationship with his brother. But I think his mom was accepting before she died, and then his sisters all were. So the females of the family were fine.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you so let's move forward to kind of, we were talking about earlier, you hit this point of being, I guess your awareness is raised to say, wait a second, like I'm multiracial and it's okay now to express both, to learn about both. When did that happen for you?
I think really the racial reckoning of 2019, 2020 was really helpful in just sort of like making a lot of things that were being left unsaid, like saying them. So that was really helpful for me to just sort of be like, oh, okay, in these ways, I've sort of been perpetuating the harms of whiteness. And in these ways, I have been harmed. And both of those are true. And I'm like, oh, okay. So both of those are true. I must be both, and also Kamau Bell did a documentary about being multiracial, because his daughters are mixed race. And watching it, I was like, well, this makes sense, but yeah, I'm not alone in this. Like, I'm not alone in having this be like a thing that's tough to struggle with. Yeah. So that was helpful.
So what do you feel now, like since then, are some significant differences in, I guess, the way you carry yourself in relationship to your identity?
Yeah, I think for me, the best piece of it, the most helpful piece of it, was to understand the way that, sort of white being the default human and white people not having to feel a racial identity and just getting to be people, but everybody else has to feel a racial identity, that piece of white supremacy, how I wanted to just be the human one. And so in the ways that I perpetuated harm would be like me just when I can jumping into that bucket so that I don't have to feel racialized. And the ways that like sometimes I think growing up, there would be times when I wouldn't join a group of Asian people. I wouldn't join a group of Black people and it wasn't because I didn't like them, wasn't because I wasn't interested in hanging out with them. It's because I didn't want to feel white. Wow. I didn't want to have to feel a racial identity. And so I had some guilt, and I had some I had to be like, oh, so that's what that was. And so what's freeing about it now is it's like, oh, it's okay for me to feel white. And so I can talk to people. Like, it's so stupid. Like, why would I, keep myself away from all these other delightful humans because I don't want to feel white? No, it's okay for me to feel white. And they might make fun of me about it, and it's fine.
Sure.
Like it's. And so now a lot of it is just me being like calling out my whiteness and just laughing about it when I'm being white, you know, so that way, like, I can kind of own it and feel comfortable in the world and know that I'm a piece of this. Yeah. This whole structure.
Yeah. I like that. That's great. Let's talk about some deep things. So tell us about Laura Benitez and the heartache and, you know, your evolution of your music to where you're at now, and potentially, like, what was the impact of your culture identity on the type of music that you ended up landing on or migrated to?
Absolutely. So it's interesting. I think I kind of trace it back to my mom. Again, silent generation. So the music of her youth was folk music. So it's full, like, A Mighty Wind, like Peter, Paul and Mary and Pete Seeger, and like everything acoustic, and, you know, original Bob Dylan. And so those were all the records that I kind of grew up with. I always really loved that sound of folk music, and I gravitated towards it, but then also kind of felt like it was uncool, and people weren't really doing it. Now, you know, it's just old fashioned. And then I remember someone gave me a mixtape with the Indigo Girls' first record with Closer to Fine on it. And I heard it and I was like, wait a minute. People are still doing this kind of music now? Like, people can make this kind of music now? And that was my first kind of inkling that that maybe this was a kind of music that I could play. But again, so much about, like, being a musician felt really opaque to me, like how you even go about doing that. Like, I kind of went into acting because you can audition.
Okay.
Like, you could, at the very least, like, maybe you're not going to get that audition, but like, there's a way to do it. But with music, like, how do you even do that? How do you gig? How do you find people to play with? Like, how do you do any of that? I had no idea. And so for a long time, I kind of, like, I think I really wanted to be a musician and a songwriter, but I kind of put it away because I was like, I don't even know how you do that.
Yeah.
So flash forward till I was doing a play, and I met a man who was a musician in the play, and he was a musician. So I ended up getting into a relationship with him. I think partially because, you know, you date people, but also because I think I wanted to be him.
Sure.
And he was a working musician. So I was like, cool. And he was playing rockabilly music, which is sort of a roots music that I really like. And he kind of introduced me to sort of the origins of folk music, which was like the old timey music and the bluegrass music, and then blues music. And so it was sort of an education and a way to, like, dive into all those genres. And through all that, I ended up hearing country music. And country music felt accessible to me because there were so many female artists in the 40s and 50s and 60s. It was such a female-powered music. And the stories that they were telling were so honest and so modern in a way. Like, the stories, like, you expect these old fashioned stories to be kind of like cutesy and like not open about the things that we're struggling with, but they absolutely were back then.
Yeah.
They talked about sexism. They talked about, you know, bad breakups and abusive relationships and you know, the pain and the reality of their lives, and in a way that I could really identify with. So when I did finally feel confident enough in my guitar playing and my musical ability to actually start writing songs, like, that's the genre that made sense to me. I've always just been attracted to the honesty of it.
Yeah. And where was there music where either of your parents, did they play instruments, and when did you start actually playing an instrument?
So my mom was very, like, you know, sort of a liberal arts kind of, everybody should play an instrument kind of. It's so sweet. She was very much like, you should learn how to play an instrument. Yeah. So she asked me what instrument I wanted to play, and I said the drums, and she said no. And so then I said, okay, how about piano? Because I wanted to play something where I could sing. Because I always knew I could sing. I could sing along to the radio, and I could tell that I was singing the same notes. So I just knew that I could sing. So I played piano for a little while. And then I just sang in choir, just sang in hours and hours and hours of choir, like, just for good solid 6 years I was singing in choir,
Yeah.
and then doing musical theater. So I learned to read music, and I learned about harmony, and certainly like really excellent ear training that I still value. I just spent a lot, like I'm kind of a late bloomer, so I think I just spent a lot of years just absorbing until I felt like I could then had something to say, you know.
Oh, right on. Right on. And so you picked up the guitar and you started playing when you were how old?
Oh, that's a great question. So I was in college. So what happened was, so this is funny. So like, I didn't know how to be a musician, but I was like, well, musical theater, I can do that. You know, I can act, I can sing. But, you know, turns out it's a pretty competitive field, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who can act and sing. And so I got into college. I went to Northwestern, which is a fantastic acting program, fantastic theater school. Lots of people went there, but their musical theater program, extremely competitive. Like there's people there who like went straight from Northwestern to Broadway. Like I have people I graduated with who went to Broadway, and it was just not going to be me because I didn't really want to sing opera, and I couldn't really belt like you really need to belt. And so I ended up not really having a place in musical theater, but I'm like, well, what else do I do? So I ended up like, I'm taking all these voice lessons and I'm really struggling. I'm like, I want to sing. And so I want to try to do musical theater, but it's not working out because I'm not getting cast because I don't have the right kind of voice and all these things. And so it was really kind of an identity crisis, you know, because I kind of put myself into like this acting thing, thinking that I was going to do musicals, but then I can't do musicals. So I was taking voice lessons, with a woman in Chicago who was in the original cast of Les Mis, and she was just this really like hip woman who really kind of like just real brassy and like fun and funny and was very much my advocate. And so we worked together for a couple of years, and then towards the end, as I'm about to graduate, she was like, "You have a guitar voice." And she went into another room and she pulled out a Yamaha guitar with no strings on it, and she handed it to me. And she's like, this is my husband's guitar. He never plays it. You take it.
Wow.
She just gave me a guitar. And, you know, the next week I come back and she's like, I got into a little bit of trouble with my husband for giving you that, but it's fine. It's fine. You keep it. She's like, he doesn't play it. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
So she gave me a guitar, and so I went and paid $60 and had someone put strings on it because I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's when I was like, that was the first person who who could tell what I was trying to do, and they're like, learn to play this because this is what you should do.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've been gifted by like some really wonderful teachers in that way. So after that, I kind of like, I tried playing guitar. I don't know if you've played guitar. It's hard. Yeah. It hurts when you first start. And I didn't have the vision of where I was going when I first picked it up. And so I kind of played a few chords and I was like, oh, I don't know. And it took a really long time. And then my ex-husband was a guitar teacher, so he showed me a few more things. So I kept going, but it's still really hard and blah, blah, blah. And then finally you do it long enough to where it starts to make sense.
Yeah.
And then I was able to use it to write songs.
That's awesome. Yeah. The persistent perseverance. That's so awesome. What do you think what was your driving factor to want to be, in the acting space, performing space? What do you think what was driving you?
I think because I have a very direct personality, and I grew up with two parents who were silent generation. So it just meant that I was always rounding up against all these things that I wasn't supposed to say. So for me, being on stage meant this is a place where it's okay to say those things. It's okay to show big emotions. It's okay to be angry or sad or to question or to inhabit a different character. It's okay to say the things that I never felt like I could say. Music then also once I tried being an actor for a while. It's just it's a miserable business. It just is. Yeah. The level of rejection base versus what you actually get to do. It's so hard. And especially being in LA in the early 2000s, you remember that time period. Yeah, I'm this tall, kind of Hispanic, but not Hispanic enough woman who's trying to like get cast in LA, and I wasn't like a size 0, like,
Yeah.
God, that's, yeah. So culturally that was never going to work, I don't think. But when I started writing songs, that was, and it also, like, acting also kind of like, I ran up against that feeling of voicelessness again, because like I wanted it for that self-expression, but in acting, all you get is people telling you no all the time, like just day after day. No.
Yeah.
And so I finally was like, I just need to not be in a position where I'm asking people permission to speak anymore. Like, I think I just need to speak, which is, a silly thing to be struggling with. But I finally like started writing songs because I was like, I want to talk about the things that I want to talk about. And one of the first songs I was thinking when we were setting up this interview, one of the very first songs I wrote was a song called Blonde and Blue. And it was about being mixed race.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It's like blonde and blue. What's a brown-eyed girl to do when the world wants blonde and blue? And it's about being an actor in LA and like having these mixed parents and like not fitting in. So it's so interesting that one of the first things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned even that too, because I was like, oh, I should have asked her to sing something. Like, hey, she have her guitar right there. She can sing something for us. So that's like the perfect song.
I do not have a guitar right here, but it goes, blonde and blue, what's a brown-eyed girl to do?
Nice.
Blonde and blue, and the world wants blonde and blue. I should revive it. I don't know. I didn't. The verses were a little clunky, but
yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing that. So your music, obviously, it seems that the impact on it is country and folk music. Are you thinking about? Do you have anything that has any Latinx flair to it? Have you thought about, like, do you play Spanish style guitar too, or?
I don't. Okay. I know. Okay. I wish I did. That'd be awesome. But I actually ended up doing a couple of songs on my 2018 record that had kind of a conjunto feel to them. Okay. Not that I have any right to be singing conjunto, but but I ended up. So what happened? So what happened was I brought this song to my band, and a song called Almost the Right One is the song. And so I played it for the band, and the man who was playing steel guitar with me, Ian, was like, this song would be cool if it had like a Spanish verse, and then we could kind of do it kind of conjunto style, and then it could like kind of like Freddie Fender it. And I was like, you're assuming that I can write music in Spanish, which So I did. I wrote a Spanish verse for it, and nobody has complained so far. So I guess I did okay. I mean, not that many people have heard it also, but I haven't had anybody like being like, you messed Spanish up, which is as a mixed race person is like my worst fear. Is that someone come to me and be like, that Spanish was terrible.
It's funny we think that way, but like it's especially I feel like Latinx Hispanic individuals when you're there's we hear about those ethnicities or those countries or those places you go where they don't want you to even try if you're slaughtering something. But I feel like Latinx Hispanic culture is very opening if you're even trying, because I don't know, maybe it's because like, where everybody's always telling them to speak English or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I really never had anyone be at all upset about my Spanish.
So where are you at right now with your band? What was the evolution? And maybe you can summarize, the evolution of your musical career to where you're at right now.
Yeah. So I started really pushing the band and booking gigs. I started writing in about 2008, but I started really like pushing the band in about 2012, 2013. And so I've been at it for about 10 years with this particular country project, Laura Benitez and the Heartache. And, we've toured the West Coast. I got to play a festival in Nashville. It's fun. I'm going to be doing a couple of showcases at Americana Fest in Nashville next month, which is fun. And it's one of those things where, like, at this point I make kind of part-time money doing private parties and playing gigs and stuff like that. And post-pandemic, in some ways, it's been nice because it's sort of like it's that feeling of part of Forrest Gump when like they have the hurricane and like all the shrimp boats get destroyed. And so now all of a sudden he's really successful because he's the only shrimp boat that's left. Like you feel like the only shrimp boat that's left as a musician post-pandemic because a lot of bands broke up, a lot of people moved, a lot of things changed, a lot of venues closed, like it was a huge rupture.
Yeah.
So in some sense, like it's been gratifying because I've been able to get some cool gigs and open for some fun people and play some festivals and stuff like that. But it's also, it's a tough business and it really requires touring to be sustainable. As a working mom, like I don't always want to tour as much as probably would be needed to sustain the band. But I also am working with a booking agent and booking some shorter tours regionally. So, I keep thinking I'm going to quit and then I get more opportunities and then I write more songs and then I'm like, well, I guess I'm not quitting then. So,
What is representation? What does the representation like, with your background look like in that space? Because it probably is, and has anybody ever come up to you and said, oh, wow, like I am mixed race or I am Latinx and like, it's so awesome to see you performing this type of music because I love this music, I
do actually get quite a few, mostly Chicano folks say how much they love country music, which I love. And especially if I sing and it shouldn't be this way, but I still I'll have people, late at night, a little drunk, come up after I sing something in Spanish and just be so appreciative that I sang anything in Spanish.
Yeah.
They absolutely will like say that. And, it's not like there aren't, musicians out there who are playing, but I think to hear it in the white space is what they really appreciate.
Such a beautiful language too, like I grew up, my dad, grew up in Mexico and then him and my mom, they were really old school, probably even beyond silent generation, but that's all they listened to growing up was, I was named after Antonio Aguilar. So, Yeah. So,
writing lyrics in Spanish is way easier than English. It's like everything rhymes. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating how it does that. So, what's next for Laura and the Heartache? And share where people can find you online.
Absolutely. So I think one of the best places is Laura Benitez and the Heartache.com. And you can also find us on Instagram. It's at Laura Benitez and the Heartache. I'm on Threads. I'm on TikTok a little bit. On TikTok, I'm Laura Benitez Music, and I just tell random stories. So if you like this, then you'll like my TikTok. And we're going to be going up to Portland and Southern Oregon in November, December. We're going to hopefully go down to Southern California as well. So we're going to be getting out of town a little bit. And if you want us to come to your town, let me know and I'll see what I can do.
Awesome. Well, when you're up in Portland, we'll have to look you up. We'll have to come out and see you. Yeah.
I'll send you an email.
Yeah, please do. I ask everyone, and I think I prepped you earlier. What's your recipe?
I know, but I'm still not ready.
We got to save the easiest question for last.
No, okay. So my recipe for world peace. Okay, I'm going to be a little bit cheesy about it, but I really believe in the power of storytelling and the power of the connection that comes from storytelling. So I would say that my recipe for world peace is to tell your story.
Love it. Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here is to share your story, to help individuals even maybe find parts of their story that they hadn't thought about. So
yeah.
One other thing that I thought about that your response has made me think of is it seems like music was therapeutic for you also in many ways to come into your identity. What were some other things maybe that you could pass along to other individuals who are in that space of maybe they know it, maybe they don't know that like they're really still seeking out to define who they are? What are some other things that might have helped you sift through all the different thoughts and experiences?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One was I decided that I would go to Puerto Rico and I would go to the Netherlands because I just wanted to see what that was about and have like sort of to see what pieces of my identity made sense in those places. And going to Puerto Rico really helped me to own the identity because, I didn't feel Puerto Rican enough, but you go to Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans look like everything.
Yeah.
It's pretty diverse group of folks. And again, that like nobody there is telling me that I don't belong.
Yeah.
And then, and going to the Netherlands was just fun to sort of see why my mom is the way she is, like just the way, the way that the Dutch, they're funny. They're funny. Like they have no filter. They're sort of known for that. And just sort of seeing like just the way that culture was represented. So I would recommend a cultural vacation for sure.
Love it.
Also food. Food is huge. Just those recipes that you loved as a kid, just learn how to make them and own that piece of cultural history. That's been huge for me to just rediscover like recipes.
Yeah, it's amazing. Food is such a foundational piece of our heritage, and people talking about their identity is a lot of times it's like starts with, I used to make this with, such and such. And did you run into any individuals, and I'll wrap up with this, within your travels that were mixed, that were living in those countries or from those countries, and were you able to talk about that experience? Because I know that we in the United States, especially, it ebbs and flows, but right now it's in like the top of the wave of like talking about race and other things, being multiracial, biracial, where some countries are kind of like, well, it's just the way it is. Like our country's been a melting pot forever and, people are mixed and Yeah, I think less so in the Netherlands. The nice thing about the Netherlands was that everybody was really tall. And so I felt just very at home as a tall woman. Like I was like, oh, everybody's my size. Although the theater seats were the right height and stuff. It was pretty cool. So that was fun. But the nice thing about going to Puerto Rico is very much what you said, is that it's a melting pot. Like it's a port. It's a place for travelers. So it's always been mixed. At least since, the conquest, it's been mixed. And so I did meet some mixed people there. I think there was a docent at the fort in Old San Juan, who was Irish Puerto Rican and was like I had like pale skin and red hair. And I think was speaking Puerto Rican Spanish. So that was fun. And then also just talking to everybody about like who of their relatives live off of the island, which is everybody in Puerto Rico. So nobody there, like everybody's has pieces of their family in the United States. So that was definitely foundational to be like, oh, okay, no, this is just the experience of this culture. That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Laura. And definitely if you're up in Portland, we'll have to come out and my wife and we'll have to come out and watch you. And
that'd be amazing. Well,
I feel like I just kind of touched the surface of a lot of other things that we could potentially talk about, passing on some of these heritages to your children and other things, but we can save that for another conversation follow-up in the future. So
absolutely. My kid's pretty little, so when she gets a little older, we'll have to see how that goes.
Right on. All righty, Laura. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. This was lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. And in the meantime, subscribe, review, and comment wherever you listen to this podcast. And most of all, please share it with your friends. Thank you for joining us for the Multiracial Verse podcast. My name is Antonio Fernandez. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Huge shout out to my friend Johannes Skoda for mixing and creating the intro music, and DJ Kazam for the track.